We've all been there, and we all know. Supply house girl, she looks my way and I unfurl. She's a 6 outside, but a 10 in my world. That supply house girl. Supply house girl, I changed lanes to talk to you. Forget my list, but my love is true for supply house girl. You ask for my number, I start to stumble. I can't find the words to speak. But then I realize, and my heart is broken because it's the PO number you seek. Awkward. Supply house girl, she wears tight clothes to sell more tools. Got 3 Testo 330s and I feel like a fool. Oh, that supply house girl. You ask for my number, I start to stumble. I can't find the words to speak. But then I realize, and my heart is broken, cause it's a PO number you seek. Whoa, supply house girl. Yeah, 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 yeah. Supply house girl. Yeah, 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 yeah. One day I'll come in and you'll be gone. Yeah, 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 yeah. Good evening, this is the HVAC Fake News with Zach Ciota, and your mama can't dance, and your daddy can't rock and roll. A growing issue in the HVAC trade is instances of HVAC dysphoria. HVAC installers, although wanting to be installers, are starting to identify as service techs in order to receive higher pay. The reciprocal is service techs still wanting to be service techs, but wanting to identify as installers to receive lower hours. OSHA is now classifying HVAC work vans as an enclosed environment when it comes to working spaces and living spaces. So therefore, many of the foods that you enjoy for lunch are now banned because it causes an unstable van environment after lunch. Among these foods and restaurants are Taco Bell's Burrito del Grande La Fuego, any Indian Thai fusion restaurant, gas station hot dogs, gas station pizza, or any food coated with a hot sauce that's above the number 6 level. Since many of the install helpers and apprentices are not yet fully developed mentally and physically, sometimes it's best to tell them how to act because they know not what to do. When going into a customer's home, there are many things you don't wish to say when looking at a customer's photographs, specifically the customer's daughter. We have found that there are 5 things that install helpers and apprentices say that need to be prevented or just keep those people in the van for most of the job. Number 5. Hey, when does your daughter turn 18? Number 4. This is your wife? I'd still do that. Number 3. I think I saw your daughter down at the Barbary Coast doing belly shots the other day. Number 2. I'll save this mentally for later. Number 1. Or just holding the picture up, pointing at it and going, yup. Finally, let's talk Blue On. Blue On has a new system in which you can order parts through them for the unit you're working on. They'll go to the supplier, pick them up, and bring them out to you at the job site. Suppliers, in response, concerned that they will no longer be able to give you the wrong size takeoffs, wrong defrost boards, and other things, have decided to change all the labels on all the boxes at the supply house just to make sure that their system of giving you the slightly wrong part will continue. My name is Zach Ciota, and this was the Fake News. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Air Conditioning on the Internet. I'm your host, Zach Ciota. Glad to see all of you guys. It's, of course, HVAC Shop Talk for anyone who's watched the first time and wondered why the name was different. I'm just kidding. I'd like to say hello to our chatters this evening. We have chatters. We have two Egans, one named Jessica, and then there's an entirely different Egan named Craig, but they are married together. Zach Cirasani, my New York brother from another mother. We have Brent Ridley from the Tool Pros podcast. Brent is going to be on this program very soon. I feel it. Although I don't know if Billy is. I don't have that same feeling as I do with Brent. But I know Brent's going to be on the show very soon. Jessica, again, there's some overlap here. We have Thomas Leck, but he's changed his channel name to a very long name. So I'm just going to call him Thomas instead of that entire thing because it'll take an hour to say it. And let's see. Anyone else here? We have Jeff Kahn. Welcome and greetings this evening. Welcome, everybody. We have Nightbot. That's my Nightbot. You can click on those links if, let's see what they are. Email list, although it didn't notify you with the email list this time. Joke's on you guys. You can turn into a channel member, and you can get free access to those other videos that I release where they are more spirited. Not lascivious, mind you, but spirited. And they are very good. Welcome to T&Z Comfort Medic AC and Heating. Another long name, which I think is just Isaiah, probably. Just Isaiah, a different name. But I want to welcome back to the show here in just a minute. We have David Richardson back. David now on his 534th episode of HVAC Shop Talk. He now qualifies as host of the show, I think, in some way, legally. I'm not sure, but he has been on the show a lot of times because he's a great guest. Always enjoy having him. He's that, like I always say, it's best to have a guest that's very smart and very humble. They make very good guests. You don't want one of these divas, like some of the guys asking for certain water in their dressing room and stuff. David's not like that. He's very easygoing, which is great. So no one asked for that because obviously we can't afford a dressing room. But you guys get my point. So before we get started, I got to mention our wonderful sponsors because if we don't mention them, then they won't be sponsors and then there won't be a show. So let's mention the sponsors. Here we go, starting with Beckett. Our friends at Beckett. Look, you can see on the screen those who are visually able to. Those of you who listen to a podcast, don't worry, I'll describe it for you. You probably know who Beckett is from their condensate pumps, but they also make condensate pan treatments. And they also make, well, I have an exploded diagram of their Cadillac float switch, and I have another one in my hand actually here. Let me zoom off of this. There it is right there, the 1502S. Look at that bad boy. That ain't no piece of styrofoam on a stick. That's a real float switch right there. Ain't one of them ones that you hit and then the thing falls off and like, where'd it go? Or you drop PVC glue on it and it eats the whole float away? No sirree, Bob. Not from Beckett. You can find their link in the description of the podcast or video, whichever one you're watching, and go check them out. But you probably know about them. You probably see them at the supply house, quality stuff. So just go buy it all and tell them I told you to do it and you did it. And that'll just be the best for me. EWCcontrols.com, mind you. This is their mobile app. Has a bypass size calculator, EWC product selector, every tech bulletin ever created. So if you enjoy reading those, and nobody does, but you need to, they have every single one of them. Live tech support's only 2 clicks away. They were going to do 1 click away, but they said that is too ambitious. So it's 2 clicks away. EWC controls, that's forced air zoning products. I got them right inside my house, so I know they work because I see them every day. And that's proof. And we have TrueTech Tools, of course. TrueTech Tools, the Shop Talk code saves 8%. Every time you buy tools at TrueTech Tools, you want to use the Shop Talk code. If you use somebody else's code, that's pretty much useless because this is my job and everybody else does it as a hobby. So just use it because, you know, I need to support my children as they go to college. And I have a lot of children because I have no self-control, so you need to help them because they're all very smart and they're going to nice colleges, and that's a problem. I want them to go to community college, but they refuse to. We have NAVAC. This is the break-free power tube expander. That sounds real scientific for a cool thing that does all the stuff for you. NTE11L, battery-powered tubing expander. You know how as time goes by, we have to exert less and less force in everything that we do? Well, NAVAC said we're going to step it down even farther, and you just hit a little trigger, and the thing expands the tubing for you. It works great. I tried it out the other day. We have a video of it. It's like 300 videos back because I make so many videos, but it is on the YouTube. You can search for it, and you'll see my lovely face explaining it further. You can find out more at navacglobal.com. And, of course, we're still, you know, the Cray Cray straw. It's not a real sponsor. It's not for huffing R22. Yellow Jacket. As you see on the screen here, we have the 63325. That's a new tubing expander that comes with metal dies or shoes or whatever you want to call them. I call them dies. I don't know why. That's just what I call them. But it's a vast improvement over the previous model. So if you want to bend some tubing and not have your dies die on you, get the 63325. Also, the 67068 is the dual port manometer that is wireless. It's a Y-jack probe. I'm going to start speeding up a little bit because this will take a long time. The 60993 is a mini split set. Comes with everything from a digital torque wrench to non-digital gauges and some vacuum equipment as well as a flare block. So there you go. Get all sorts of stuff for that. Who's left? Company Cam. That's right. Snap, sync, store, share. CompanyCam.com. For your business, store your photos, all that jazz. Go to CompanyCam.com, tell them Zach sent you, and buy everything they got, and tell them Zach called you to do it. And that's how I get success, and that's what we're going to do. All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring David in here now. We're going to have a little conversation. We're going to have a lot of fun. I mean, I'm just going to let you know it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you can't handle that sort of thing, you need to click off of here. So without further ado, here is David Richardson. Hello, David.
Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me back on the show, man.
Hey, no problem. Did I get that right? Was it the 500 show? Is that about right?
Close.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Go back and count.
It just feels like just you've been here a ton of times. And
you lose track when you're having fun.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on here. Like I said, it's a pleasure having you on every time you come on. It's just very knowledgeable and don't have to, none of that diva stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I try.
Well, it's good to have you back. For those of you who don't know, David works at National Comfort Institute. David, how long have you been there?
This will be my 12th year.
12 years. Man.
Been there a while.
You plan on staying there forever?
I intend on it, but you never know how things go. I do enjoy what I do. So,
well, you seem pretty good at it.
Well, thanks. Things changed a lot since May 1st. So my job and a lot of stuff that I did got completely upended in the beginning of May, and it wasn't due to any planning by chance either. So.
Oh, wow, that's like a whole separate show. I'm not even going to follow that line of questioning because we won't have time for the other line.
Yeah, it changed a lot. So.
Well, I hope it ends up as a positive experience. I'll just say that in whatever way, shape, or form. Even if it didn't start that way, I hope it ends that way.
We hope so. We shall see.
So, I'm familiar with that sort of situation where you hope the end is positive because the beginning wasn't.
That's right.
But like I said, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. We spoke, and I'd asked you about some of the stuff you have written lately. And you gave me a few articles. I read those articles. I used up my free article from the news before I had to actually get a subscription. I think there's some kind of problem there because every time I go there, they say I have one article left, and I've been there like 50 times. So don't tell anybody. I mean, obviously they're going to start charging me.
Let's hope not. It's not supposed to be a charge thing on the stuff I write, so there's something going on.
Well, I got to read yours, so maybe that's what it was. Who knows?
Good.
One of the things is I know that it wasn't in the news. The one that we're going to be talking about was in contracting business, I think. So, and I didn't have that written down. I'm really proud of myself for remembering that. It was about
Awesome job, man.
like it's a job or something. It's a incredible installers was the article.
Yeah.
That's what it centered around, and you
Yeah.
kind of wrote it around like a series of points that you focused on. And I'm going to kind of lead us into this because you started the article, I thought, in a very good way, kind of going back into your childhood with what started as your first job, and you were not choosing a job where you had choices, but you weren't choosing to get a job. I guess your father had propelled you to get a job in one way, shape, or form and gave you some options, and you chose HVAC. And
Yep.
let me just start with that. Why did you choose that? Because I know the other one was paper boy, and there was lawn mowing, I think.
Yeah, those were the.
Why did you choose
those
HVAC?
Were three. Because I thought working for Dad would be easy. I thought being the boss's son, oh, this will be a cakewalk. Anybody who's on this call who's a boss's son, yeah. There's two
I was a
types of
boss's
boss's sons. There's two that one always has to prove themselves, so they're always trying to go above and beyond. The second type, they just don't care. They drift along and they'll let everybody do their job for them. From what I have seen, what I have witnessed, there's no in between. It's either you do great or you're a bum.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that's about right. I mean, I was a boss's kid. Of course, both my brothers, in fact, all three of my brothers worked for my father at one point, although my younger brother was only briefly. My older brother still works for him to this day. And I started out probably the lazier of the two of those and sort of transferred. And once I was given some responsibility, I kind of rose to the occasion,
Yeah.
so to speak. And I think that's an important thing. That, once you get responsibility, I mean, that's how life is defined, by taking responsibility for stuff, I guess. So what did that teach you? That first summer, it says you were 12. Is that right?
I was
12
illegal
years
child
old.
labor.
Oh man, I can't imagine. I was 14 when I started working, and I was pretty young.
Yeah.
But what was it like the first summer? Because did you go from nothing to like
It was
a career?
hot and I whined a lot because I was the lazy, spoiled boss's kid. But
Yeah.
the carrot that my dad kept dangling, number one, it was you're not going to sit on your butt all summer anymore. You're actually going to do something productive. The second thing that he dangled the carrot was however much money you can earn for a car, I will match that. So you earn $3,000, I'll give you $3,000. You earn $6,000, I'll give you $6,000. So he dangled that carrot, and it was a very effective carrot.
Well, that's good, though. So would you say that the statement about responsibility is correct? Once you're given a taste of that, you can rise to the occasion and sort of teaches you, I don't know, how to be a man, I guess, almost.
But I didn't then because I was a kid. I was
Right.
just trying to get through. I just saw the car. That was all I saw. I didn't see HVAC as a future, but I got to work with some really cool guys, and that was some of the things that prompted it. And other lessons that my dad beat into me as I was doing that, because like every other youngster that starts in this, I messed a whole lot of stuff up. But instead of having somebody fix it for me, he would say, okay, now you get to take your weekend and we're going to make this right. So when you have to take responsibility for the stuff that you mess up and then fix it, that's one of the biggest issues I see in our industry right now is, and I know this is on installers, but you have such a rift between install and service guys because install guys can go and install something, mess it up, and then instead of having to go back and fix it, the poor service guys have to go back, and they're the ones that clean it up. And you talk about a recipe for a toxic disaster in a company, that is it. Let someone else fix the problem. No one ever learns from that. And that was one of the things Dad, he hammered on me. You messed it up? Okay, great, go fix it. So nobody cleaned up my mess.
It's exactly that. My experience kind of mirrors that because I was an installer for several years before I ever did any service at all. And I remember talking because we had a sister company. It was kind of an odd situation. My father came up and he worked at a place called Hanover Iron Works, and there was a service company based in the same building, and they worked together. They would handle service, and we would do installs. So a few years into me doing this stuff, I finally talked to one of these service techs. We talked to him periodically, but pertaining to my performance, we'll say that. So he told me that day that there were so many leaks on a lot of our work because we didn't pressure check our lines.
Oh,
And I remember thinking, this whole time I thought everything was fine. It was almost like I allowed myself the silence to be a comfort. Like I must be doing everything great because I don't hear anybody yelling at me. And it was kind of an eye-opener because he was having to come behind me and do all this work all these problems that I had been steadily creating for probably years
Oh,
at that
wow.
point. So it was quite a mess, and I felt like I was kicked in the gut because I had allowed myself to believe that it wasn't happening, and when I found out it
Yeah.
was, it's like I was so ashamed of myself.
But shame's a good motivator. It's now I didn't start off doing anything like brazen or anything like that until probably I was closer to 16. I would say, between 12 and 16, I was the gopher because I was learning the tools. I was learning what stuff was, how to connect flex duct, how to put pipe together, that kind of thing. And the tools are what I thought was so cool about it. I still think the tools are cool. As I was watching the segment before this on all the different tools, that's one of the things I do miss about this. I mean, now,
Oh yeah.
a computer and a presentation remote are my two biggest tools. I do miss sometimes getting out and actually putting a duct system in. I enjoyed that work. So I didn't start that stuff until I was, 16. We used to wear these 3-season jackets. First time I ever brazed, I had to turn the torch back up, set the sleeve on fire. I'll never forget it. So set yourself on fire one time and you'll never do it again.
Yeah, yeah. I burned my fingers one time on a hot copper pipe. I never did that again either. That was very painful.
Memory
That was
marks.
very bad. Yeah, it was. It was. Oh my gosh, I've never felt pain like that before. That was horrible. But in the interest of proceeding here, because I had like a whole other story, but I'm just going to dump that on the wayside because it would be at like 45 minutes before we actually get into stuff. You had laid out a few points, basically these headers on different things, and I think one of the things that kind of drew me to this, whenever you gave me those different articles that you've written, I thought about all the, and it's funny because I was an installer. I thought about all the ways that I thought of installers, how they were like, they were the stepping stone to get to service. And they were like a more remedial career compared to service. And service techs were cool and drove like convertibles and were awesome. And installers, like, I don't know, emptied the porta potty at the end of each
Yep.
day. And I kind of forgot about all the things that they had to be capable of. And your
Yeah.
first point was vision on your in your article. You're talking about vision. You have to be able
Yeah.
to envision a job and all the different components. Now, kind of lay out what you were talking about, and we'll expand on it.
Yeah, well, with vision, I mean, especially on new construction, and even this goes on in retrofit. Anytime you're doing equipment upgrades, great installers have to see the job before it ever goes in. They have to predict cause and effect relationships on a job. If I take this out, how am I going to put it back? We did a lot of new construction when I was going out and doing this, and the guys could go into a basement or an attic, and I mean, they could describe how this system was going to lay out, and I mean, I could see it through their descriptions. And that's where really the vision part came from, because they created a visual goal on what we were working to achieve, things that we were aiming for. So even though there was just, boxes full of takeoffs and boots, and there'd be pipe, leaning up against the wall and ductwork, we had to assemble all those components. And unless you had a plan and some vision for how it was all going to tie together, there's no telling what it could have turned into. So that was one of the first things that the guys really taught me, was that to be able to look past what you're really seeing and see what could be instead of what's there. And that vision thing, that aspect, I think, is really important in our industry. And one of the biggest reasons I think installers are one of the unsung heroes, as you mentioned, in our industry, is because they got to see things before they happen. And then if something goes wrong, they have to be able to adapt to that. So that vision component is really important. The bigger the job, the bigger the vision. And with that also comes purpose. They understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So many times installers, they just, as you mentioned, they're guys and I've heard this term, and it makes me want to puke anytime I hear it, is duct monkeys. The installers in our industry, they're the ones that determine true system performance. Once we started measuring airflow and we started looking at performance, it really drove home to me how important the installers were. They determine how well a system operates. We give a lot of lip service to it in our industry. Install the ducts right. Yeah. Use all the ACA manuals and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes time for the rubber to meet the road and you measure and you're verifying that work's done, that's when you start to see the real installers from the guys who are just posers. And measurements are what creates that transparency. And if you got an installer that has no vision, they're just out there slapping stuff together. They have no idea where anything's going. And this happens to a lot of guys, unfortunately. They're a helper for a couple of weeks. They're thrown into a truck, and then they're told to run a job. and they don't even have enough experience to know what the vision is. So, I mean, it's a bad way that many guys get put into that situation, but the guys that are good at it and love it, they can see these situations. Going through airports, I'm often, I do this. I'm always looking up at the ducts, and to see the way that those ducts look and the way that they're uniform and turned, their works of art, man, mechanical art.
Yeah, I've noticed that throughout the trades, no matter if it's HVAC, electrical, carpentry, whatever, you'll see that the best installers seem to be the ones that are aesthetically minded. You'll see electrical conduit all bent in unison, and you could tell that the guy had made sure that every bend was equidistant from the next bend, even though it had no effect on performance. That attention to detail. And my dad always said this. He said, if it looks good, it works good. That's what he would tell us. If it looks good, it works good. And theoretically, that's not necessarily true. But I guess the theory is that the person that's detail-oriented enough to make the look good is going to make the work good as well.
That's a lot of that vision part of it. And that also ties into one of the other traits I know you're going to talk about, and that's craftsmanship.
Oh, yes. The craftsmanship is... and that goes right back to my image of installers. In fact, we'll transfer over to craftsmanship in just a second. But I never envisioned installers, speaking of envisioned them as craftsmen. Even when I was one, and I was taking my time and trying to, not when I first started, when I didn't know what was going on, but when I actually would do like you're saying, you would see the duct system in place. You would see where the air handler was going to go, where the furnace and coil was going to go. You picture it in your mind. You take the time to draw it out. You draw out every bit of it. You do how many CFM you thought was going to go to each run or plan it out that way. And you
That's
didn't
another
realize,
show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's we should do that too, actually. Part 2 coming up next week. Yeah. The craftsmanship of it, just everything being put in, and my father was another great example of this. And he's no service tech. My father would not be able to service anything. He doesn't know anything about service. But every single screw on the duct was equidistant from the next screw. Every single S-slot, S and drive was perfectly straight. And it worked good too. And so, I mean, it's true. If you take the time to make it look good, it is going to work good. And it is craftsmanship and artwork, like you're saying. I mean,
it says a lot about that. Number one, it says that you care. I know we talk a lot about our dads. And my dad said he used to actually have us put our initials inside the ducts. He would say, if you won't sign your system, he said, it's not worth putting in. He said, you need to be proud of it. People need to know who put it in. And still to this day, I've gotten comments from contractors saying, we can tell that you guys put that in, because there's other, guys that are going out. And of course, they're doing equipment replacements on systems that we put in when I was a contractor, and they're going back out and they're like, we could tell you guys put it in. Nobody else did stuff like that. Radius, throat, and heel L's and stuff like that. And the way that we built because we did it. My dad was a sheet metal guy like yours. And that was one of the things that he took a great amount of pride in. And the way that things looked, everything had to be in order, nice, straight, neat. And a customer that we used to have, we did a ground source heat pump for him. He made a statement I'll never forget. He said, I don't know HVAC or heating and cooling. I don't know electrical. I don't know plumbing. He said, but I do know sloppy and I do know neat.
That's that's right on the button, because that is the perception that an outsider will have. They're not going to have a perception like, hey, man, you used 1.8 in there. Shouldn't there be 3 6s or something like that? They're not going to say that. They're going to say, hey, man, your duct's on the ground. Or hey, is that much flux really legal or something like that? And you're right. If they look outside, and the condenser is a great example, because condenser is like the focal point of the system a lot of times, where people can actually see something in place, especially in the South, without the basements and stuff. And to see something that's not level, that's not square, and every copper bend is sloppy, and the previous dryer still in it, and stuff like that. I mean, anybody with eyes can tell that's bad.
Yeah.
And start to question other things. And that same customer, and let me know what you think of this, that same customer who sees that is more likely to think that slight thing that they might feel is a problem. Like they go inside and say, this room's colder, I think. But if the system's beautiful, maybe be like, okay, maybe it's just something going on in the house.
Yep.
But if other way, they might say, oh, I think we need to call these guys back out and tick them off today.
Yep. Oh, you've created doubt in that customer's mind.
Absolutely.
And it's not only the job, how it looks. I mean, it also ties back to personal appearance. I know it's shallow, but our customers base us on how we look. If you go out on a job and you're putting in, I know we work in bad environments, guys. I mean, I've got rafter knees. I've had cellulose up my nose and, soot underneath my fingers. I've been there. I know that. But you can still take pride in how you look. If you're bent over putting a piece of duct together and half of your cracks hanging out, people notice that stuff. They'll never say anything, but they notice it. And it shows, it's a reflection on how we look in our industry. We want to be paid like doctors and lawyers. We got to start taking not their bad practices, but their good practices and putting them into, and start to implement them. Looking like a professional when we go out to do these things. And that's part of being a craftsman.
Absolutely. One of the questions I had written down whenever I was reading through your article is what is wrong with a functional yet unattractive system? And you sort of answered it right there. When it's perfectly fine, you have a 3-ton system, it's working beautifully, you're getting the proper split, everything's charged perfectly, but it's just out of square in the crawl space. The unit's out of square, not in the way that it's going to cause any issue, just in the way that it visually, it's like almost like a, what's the word for it? Like an aberration. Like you look at it, it's like this doesn't sit well with me just seeing it like this. So in the end, what's the problem with it? I mean, everything works.
Yeah, they're two different things. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We've all heard that. And what looks good to me may look horrible to someone else. So I think this is where you have to define what it looks like and whether you're happy with it or not. Everybody's going to be a little bit different in what they prefer. When it comes to performance, the measurements are what tells the tale. And this is one of the hardest things I had to get past because I liked everything to look neat. I was very picky and a perfectionist. And by the way, for those of you that think perfectionism is a good thing, it's not, it's a curse. I was a perfectionist. And one of the things I would do, I wanted everything to look just right. Even though my measurement said, hey, this part of the duct system is working okay. You can leave it alone. Focus on this part. That wasn't good enough for me because it didn't look just right. And what I started doing was my perfectionism started to bleed over into my customer's pocketbook. And in some instances, I was actually pricing myself out of jobs because I was letting my hangups affect things that they didn't care about. Now, if they cared about it, that's different. But the physical, the appearance aspects of it, and then the performance aspects of it are two totally different sides. Because I have seen some systems that were horrible looking. They tested awesome. I have seen some that were designed by engineers. These things were works of art. And the actual delivered capacity was less than 50% on some of these systems. Looked great, performed horribly.
That's amazing. I've seen plenty of horrible ones that perform horrible. That you look at, it's like, this is going to be a bad one, and it turns out to be a bad one. And every now and then I'd see something where I bet the static's like, off the charts, and it would be like perfect. It's like, how did this even happen? It's like, it's crazy. The blower set on super low. That's probably why it happened.
Well, and that's what the measurements do. Is they take, because most of the time it is a bad looking job operates bad. That's usually what happens. The measurements actually back up what we already know, and they give us some firepower to talk to the customer about it. So then the reason I kind of tied into this craftsmanship aspect of it, because that was one of the things I got so sick and tired about in our industry, and why I almost left. I think I've talked about this before on your show. Why I almost left back in 2000. I was sick and tired of getting my butt handed to me for $50 to $100 on a job. We all sold the same equipment. We're all HVAC guys. In Kentucky, you have to have a master's license. Your license. So we all look the same. Measurements prove we're not. We knew we did better work. At least we thought we did until we measured it. We found out there were things we needed to clean up also. But once we took the measurements, that's what separated us. Because now we could say, are you sure you're getting what you're paying for? We can prove it. We can offer you an assurance policy through these measurements. So our craftsmanship stuff looked good, and now we could prove that it worked good. That was one of the things that I loved about what NCI teaches. And it's one of the reasons why I even started working there. But that's why we started to do this stuff. Because what we teach and what we did was we were trying to elevate the industry, even our own little way in Central Kentucky, to change from being low-priced laborers to being well-paid craftsmen who get paid for what they know and what they do. And I mean, that's why I switched jobs. So, with the craftsmanship side, we need to get paid for the expertise that we bring to a job. And unless you're measuring, You can't prove that because you look like the same to everybody else. They see a truck, they see some of the same, marketing slogans that everybody just cut and paste. Measurements are what makes you unique, and it shows and it proves your craftsmanship. This is the cool thing about installers. Our guys, I could show you who were our A team, our B team, and our C team through measurements, and they knew it. There was no place to hide. There were scoreboards. You look at any sports team. I was watching football before we came down to talk to you. There's always a scoreboard. Everybody knows what their stats are. Amazon Web Services keeps all that information. Yet when it comes to installers, they have no idea. It either works or it doesn't. With measurements, you can say this run worked, this run didn't. You can start to pinpoint and develop, a goal for people to work towards. So they do understand, hey, my work does make a difference.
In your opinion, I have two questions for you. Let's start with this one. In your opinion, does craftsmanship include some mental preparedness, or are we just talking about the physical layout of the job, how it's put together?
Oh, it's a mindset 100% first.
Okay.
It all starts in your mind first. It is a mindset first. You have to care. I mean, you can go look, and if you want a quick way to determine how somebody cares, go look in their van. Now, I'm not talking after they've worked in the day and they're just trying to get home. I'm talking about how they maintain it. Go look in somebody's truck, and you can tell real quick. And those of you that are listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You've got some guys you can go get in their truck, and you could eat off the floor of the back of their van. You've got others, you wouldn't let your dog in their truck because you would be afraid that it would pick up fleas inside that vehicle.
Yeah.
We know this stuff.
I'm glad I'm neat. I'm just gonna say that on the air. I'm neat. I'm neat. My shop is pretty neat.
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm an absolute pig.
It's in flux.
I just get busy. That's life.
My problem is that I'm similar to, I guess, you in the way that you will see minute things that you can see potential improvement on, and you'll pursue them to the point that you have destroyed any profit that your company can make, and you've made your customer doubt hiring you was a good idea because you've been there for a week and a half or something like that. Because I'm the same way. When I walk around, even my shop here, I'm like, well, we're going to change this, and this tomorrow. So we actually have to do some real work, but we have to change this 17 things before I can actually get started. And all of a sudden you shoot yourself in the foot. So I don't know, you have to learn where that point is, but I guess it's
a fine line. Well, and communication comes in there also, because duct repairs, when you're doing duct modifications, it's sometimes they are not in and out. Now, for typical upgrades at the equipment, you're just increasing the size of the return drop, the filter, and changing the supply plenum out and putting some good takeoffs in or a splitter tee or something. You can do that in a day. But if you're getting out into full duct repairs and you're fixing the system, and you may be there a couple of days, so you got to price that accordingly. If you're not making 70% gross margins on those, you are underpricing them. Because whenever you do this and you're selling your craftsmanship, you're selling your work, you're selling your services, you're selling you because you're the brand. And you've got to sell that system for what it does, not what it is. What it is just sheet metal and parts and insulation and mastic. You bring it to life, and that's what you have to sell. You're selling that craftsmanship, essentially.
You're the difference. You're the only difference between anybody else and your company is what you do with those same components.
Yeah.
So.
And it's the installers, the lead guys are the ones that will cultivate this attitude and share it with the others. If you're a lead installer listening to this and you don't give a crap, whoever works with you doesn't give a crap either, because you don't. If you do and people see that, they would much rather see a lesson than hear one. So if you preach, we got to do the right job, and then you're, slacking off, you've spoke volumes just by doing that. So people that lead by example, we see that. So your lead install guys are the ones that will cultivate this and run with it. So, but it's nice to be able to go home at night and know that you did a job well done and you didn't halfway do something. There's something that's contenting about that and peaceful. But it's not easy to do it because it does take effort. And that's where one of the other traits comes in, the work ethic part of it.
Man, that's exactly where I was going to head. And here's our segue for going over to work. Yeah, I know. It's like you have been on here so often that we just don't even need to speak to each other during the transitions. I was going to ask you one last thing, and it's that guy gets home from work. It's you know how it is. Sometimes it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
later. But let's say it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. The van is trashed to the hilt. Do you spend the time right then and there to get it squared away? What do you do?
You go in and you enjoy your family. You leave it all in the parking lot. You leave it all in your driveway.
Is that learned, or have you always done that?
Part of it's learned, part of it's from regret.
Okay, I can understand that completely. Daddy's out
Yep.
there all the time. Yeah, I remember that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, good. Very candid. Thank you. We'll switch over to work ethic, because install. I think everyone can agree that install can be the worst environments to work in. So you're gonna have somebody that's
Yeah.
consistently able to attack that for long periods of time, for weeks at a time. Sometimes, that's a special breed right there, don't you think?
It is. There is a mental and a physical perseverance that's needed to do what we do, whether it's in the extreme heat or the extreme cold. And there's actually a fifth trait that buddy of mine, contractor Pennsylvania, pointed out. So there'll be a fifth trait coming out in contracting business before too long. So keep a lookout for that. And I can't believe I missed it. He was like, I can't believe you didn't put this one down. I was like, I can't believe I didn't either. Awesome. So Tony
Gotta
gave
write
me
more
full
articles,
complete
man.
credit for it. I was like, this is great. I can't believe it. So there'll be a fifth trait coming also. But I have worked, and probably all of you that have done this, you usually the beginning of the year, at least once, you'll get heat stroke, heat exhaustion. You get going, you get wrapped up, you don't drink enough fluids, you don't sit down enough, and before you know it, you're getting lightheaded and hopefully not worse. But there's a difference between working hard, working smart, and then combining the two. And we have to do some nasty stuff, guys. I mean, there's times we're down in our knees, we're in muddy crawls. This is another one of those lead by example things. Don't ever ask anybody to do something that you wouldn't do. I have a huge peeve with that. That's one of the things Dad taught me. If we had to get in a muddy crawl, he was the first one in.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's kind of gotten lost in our industry. That it's usually, hey, you go do this, and I'll sit out here and smoke a cigarette and wait on you.
It's vape. It's vape now.
No, vape. Okay, that doesn't work. By the way, if you guys sit in an NCI class, don't vape. It's not acceptable.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that doesn't seem like that would be acceptable. Yeah,
like,
I don't think that's a good thing.
What are you doing? Yeah.
I understand that. I mean, I can actually, when you said go into a muddy crawl space, I literally imagined a specific crawl space from like 20 years ago or 25 years ago. I could see it now because you could see the waves moving across in a distance. And I realized that there's a lot of guys, I think, that when you get to a certain, what you would perceive, let's say, stature, whether it be in a company or in life or whatever, you feel like you don't have to do that anymore because you've ascended beyond that. But what you're telling me is you have to be willing to show guys that you're willing to do it in order to lead guys. Is that what you're saying?
You do. You got to be willing to sweep the shop, clean out your van.
Man, it's the simple things right there.
It is. But they're the big things. They're the ones that people look at. And, with work ethic, it's, getting the job done. I mean, and I got to tell you, we were talking about smartphones earlier before you launched the broadcast. And that's something that had just come out when I got out of the field. I think I got an iPhone 4 when I first got out of the field and started working at NCI. That's how long ago it was.
Man.
But you look at that constant form of distraction. I mean, there's two types of installers and service techs. You're either distracted or undistracted. And that makes it so much easier to be distracted now. I got a couple seconds. I'll go surf Facebook or whatever your other favorite social media site is, instead of being able to focus on the job and think about what the next steps are going to be. So when we look at these, work ethic things and it being a mindset, it's also a focused mindset. Getting the job done and sticking with it until you're done and being able to do some deep work without stopping to, check notifications every 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That little red circle with a number in it, man. That's important stuff. That could be life or death right there. You won't know unless you check it.
Yeah. Airplane mode is a blessing.
That really is a blessing. And it kind of makes me think about, you think about the lead, you think about the employees. But as employees, you need to start practicing self-control. you have to wean yourself off of, I don't know, just wanting to look at it, thinking that it's so important. I don't know how you do that because we're so wrapped up in it now, but you almost have to train yourself like a child.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand what the triggers are. There's triggers for everything. You've got internal and external triggers, and you have to know what they are. I know what mine are. It took me a long time to figure them out. But if you ever spend, there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. If you've ever spent the end of the day and you've like busted it for 9 hours and you turn around and you're like, I didn't hardly get anything done. You're being busy, but are you being productive? And this goes back, my dad's first installer, his name was Roger. And I'll never forget, because this was a part of about being organized. And, Dad told me a story. He's like, he would go up and down the ladder 100 times. And he stopped and he wanted to know how Dad had gotten so much done. And he said, it doesn't look like you're doing anything. He said, how have you gotten so much done? And he told me, he said, Roger, let me show you something. He put his tool belt on him. He loaded him up with, screws and a drill gun and everything, put his hand tools in there. And he said, now you think one step ahead. I'm doing this. What's next? And he said, you're always thinking one step ahead and you're planning that way. And that really kind of goes back to the vision, but it ties into the work ethic thing also. Because there's a lot of guys, they bust it. They don't get anything done. It's because they're totally unorganized. They're not thinking one step ahead.
Yeah, so across the trade too.
And that's good if you're a helper that's listening to this. If you want to promote yourself, think one step ahead. You try to think, I'm working with this lead installer. What's the next thing he needs to do? And you do it. You make sure it's there waiting on him. You want to get a job promotion and more pay? That's the fastest way to do it. Not only does it show you got work ethic, it also shows you have initiative.
Yeah, and I think now, especially we talk about smartphones, everything's instantaneous with smartphones. You get a lot of information, whether it be wrong, right, whatever. You could have someone tell you an answer of some value pretty quickly. And, putting that adjacent to, I'm going to take the initiative because I'm working toward a promotion I may not get for a year and a half, but it's part of the journey forward. You see, that would create a difficult situation because you're training yourself for immediate results in a career, or any career really, and in life when you have to wait a significant time to get results. So I think that's causing a lot of problems these days, and myself too.
It is, because there's really two different things going on there. You've got the immediate gratification, which is taking place now, and then you've got delayed gratification, which is the case with craftsmanship. There's things that take years to develop. And that's one of the things that our industry has gotten away from, is a true and apprentice journeyman mastery program. And I know the unions still do it. I won't get into the union versus non-union discussion on here, but having a true format to where people are allowed the time to learn, those that are getting into our industry. Everyone progresses at different rates. I see this in training classes. You have some guys, they see it once and they're like, bam, they've got it and they run with it. I'm not that way. It takes me forever to learn something. I have to read it. I have to think about it. I have to see it. Then I have to do it. Then I'm good. And I won't forget it after that. But all of us learn at a little bit different rates. And when you look at our trade, there's so many different aspects of it, from the plumbing, electrical, refrigeration, from the air side, the design side. There's so many different aspects that go into what we do, that you're trying to master all of these specialized skilled trades that will take years. And we see these guys doing it on YouTube. We see them doing them on social media. And we're like, I think I'm going to watch this and I'll automatically have that skill. What you don't realize is you're comparing your beginning to their middle or their end, where they're at. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. It's not fair. You have to realize where you're at. And that's where that vision comes in, and that work ethic is planning. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do one step at a time moving forward? Where do I want to be next year? Most of us aren't very good at writing out our goals. We don't even have goals. We just, work for beer 30.
Just a blank sheet of paper, really. Grocery list, if you will.
And that's exactly where you'll end up. Is not the grocery
where
store.
you said
you might end up at the grocery store, but a blank.
Right. You'll get where you plan to get. Whether you unplanned or not, you'll go nowhere, or you'll just go randomly somewhere.
That's correct.
Based on other people's actions.
You think about ships that sail or airplanes. When they leave, they've got a destination. They know where they're going. They always make slight adjustments. No, there's no ship that would leave a harbor without a destination, because if it was just going to drift, it would end up grounded somewhere.
Absolutely.
So, but we, sometimes we live like that. I lived my life like that too many years until I met
Yeah.
some very good people who pointed me in the right way.
It's youth. That's what youth's all about.
It is.
Adrift is how I describe my youth. And that beer you were mentioning, a lot of that too. I don't do that anymore.
Like
I realize-
styrofoam cups in a windy parking lot.
Yeah, that's about right. And I think that people go through stages, and they learn. Sometimes people learn things easy way. Sometimes they learn it the hard way, and sometimes you need it the hard way.
Yeah.
I guess.
The times I've made the biggest changes in my life were when somebody just absolutely pissed me off, and I was like, "Okay, time to prove you wrong." That's when the biggest changes, and that's just the way I'm wired. I know some guys that are like that, and they would just shut down. Others, they are like, give me some encouragement, breathe some life into me. All they need is somebody to believe in them, and they will walk through a wall. We're all wired a little bit different, and so you got to figure out what works for you and use it.
There's where your lead comes in. A little bit of perception on behalf of the lead. When you have like a couple installers underneath you, if you can realize what kind of people they are, you probably make your own life a lot easier and make their life a lot easier. Lead them somewhere better than where they might go otherwise.
Yeah.
Because in that situation you're talking about, a couple of them might say, "I quit."
Yeah.
Oh, you're wrong. I quit. I've seen that plenty of times.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing our industry, we need so many more good people. There's so many good people that are in our industry. We need more. And if you can find ways to give people hope that this is a great industry. I have made lifelong friends in this industry. I've had people that have mentored me, influenced me, and had big influences in my life. I hope I'm able to do the same. But when you see the impact that people have in our industry, there's so many others that need what we have. And, how to attract that. If we're not getting paid for what we do and all we're doing is moving boxes, we're not going to attract the best talents that's out there.
No.
They're not going to do what we do because it takes a special set of skills and physical. You got to have a toughness to you. I think that's where the fourth point comes in, which is metal.
Man, that's perfect. That's exactly
not sheet metal.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I said metal. I don't know. Galvanized? You talking about 26? No.
Yeah. It's not a term we use much.
No, it's not. It's METTLE. Metal.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been bad if I misspelled that here on the show because I don't use that term very often. I recognized it because it's somewhat of, I won't say antiquated, but people don't really use it in modern times. So
you notice that what we're talking about, there's nothing new here. Anything that we're talking about, it's all old stuff. It's like, man, you guys are a bunch of old farts talking about this stuff. It's because the more things change, we keep going back to those foundational principles that, take us to where we need to go. And with metal, an easier way to think about metal is maybe toughness, grit, being able to stick with something or persevere. But metal's a word we don't talk about much. There's a strength under control when you've got metal.
Well, I like that. Strength under control.
Yeah.
That's a real good thing. Yeah. The ability to be patient and strong in any circumstance instead of lashing out, instead of losing your cool. I like that. The meek shall inherit the earth is the men that can use swords but keep them sheathed will inherit the earth sort of thing.
Yep.
I think that's a great point. I don't know how you came up with metal. I don't know that you walk around using words from the 1920s.
I don't even remember. Some stuff just pops up. I don't, and it may have been, I probably did a synonym search or something, who knows, but it was like, somebody's metal there. Cause it applies perfectly to what we do, unless you're, in duckboard and flex country, but metal is, I was like, we get it. Rock and roll, heavy metal. We get it. Bang your head, that kind of stuff.
So to have metal, to have this fortitude, I'm imagining, not just physical rigor, mental rigor. And then if you're a lead installer, and it's not one of the things that I had kind of noted here, that you have to deal with things that are, out of the scope of the job. You have to deal with inspectors. You have to deal with the plumber who ran the plumbing pipe in front of the crawl space opening, like that was ever a good idea, yet happens all the time for some reason. I don't know why that is. But stuff like that. You lay out a duct system. You take your time. You have a notepad, although it's a piece of cardboard or whatever it is, and you've drawn it out. You have the numbers. You have the sizes. You have which way the reducers are going. You have what kind of takeoffs you're using, and by gosh, the plumber has put a pipe in like 4 different places. So I mean, what does it take to deal with that? That's what I'm saying.
There's when you think about situations like that, you got 2 choices. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can definitely control how you respond to it. I'm ashamed to say, but there were times that plumbing pipes were in the way, and my response was with the reciprocating saw, and it usually didn't turn out well when that happened.
Well, part of us is like, yeah, man, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we do, we tend to tell ourselves stories, and we become either victims or, it's like, this guy's out to get me. This plumber, he knew I was going to put that duct there. The truth is, he didn't even think about it. He was just trying to get his job done just like we are. Some of it is staging, when we get in on the job. But then other times, it's, just being smart enough to know, hey, let's look for a different way to do this. It might not be ideal, but let's see what we can do. And when you talk about this fortitude and this mettle, it's really it's a mentality for how you're going to approach these things, and making almost a pact with yourself that I'm not going to blow up and lose it over something that really in the big scheme of things doesn't make that big of a difference. And I mean, I have seen people, a fellow contractor in Frankfurt, I watched this guy blow up on a customer on his cell phone, actually slammed it into the side of his van, and his driver's side door was open, and then he threw it and hit the passenger side door in his van. And I mean, every other word out of his mouth was a cuss word. This guy just blew up. I don't know what happened, but man, he flipped. And that was a choice.
Yeah. That story reminds me of something. I remember watching my father on the phone, and my father was, I respected him a great deal. I respect him ongoing a great deal for his patience, his intelligence, and the way he calmly dealt with 99% of things. But there are situations that I recognize that he was very poor in. And there were some of these interactions where obviously he felt like he was in the right and the customer was being unreasonable. But that's not a green light to let every bit of anger you have in your body out. You still have to deal with it some way. You still have to work it out. And I've seen him blow up. I've seen him slam a rotary phone. It's been a while. Into the desk, true story, into the desk, and just lose his temper. And I remember thinking at the time, man, I'm with Dad. I think this is stupid. But looking back, it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What happened there? You have to deal with it, no matter what. That's the hard part.
Yeah. It is.
Still learning that.
When you look at this too, it's dealing with those daily situations. Having to get, like we talked earlier about getting in that muddy crawl space. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can either go, I got to get this done and just dive in and get it done, or you can complain and whine about it all day. It's, that is a decision. And if you've got that mettle and that toughness to you, you take things for what they are and you get it done. You get the job done instead of whining about it.
Yeah, if you got to be there all day,
nobody wants to hear us whining. I mean, that was I forget who it was that said this to me, but I was griping about something. I think it's probably up on a roof. And they're like, stop your whining, weenie. And it always stuck with me. Stop your whining, weenie. So don't be a whining weenie.
What did you say, sir? No. How dare you?
It's just, I was like, yeah.
And then I threw him off the roof, and I didn't hear it anymore.
That's actually a rolling joke at NCI. One of the instructors throwing people off roofs.
Which instructor?
I won't tell you because he has changed his ways.
Let me go through everybody I remember works there. I don't know.
It's an internal joke. Sorry.
No, I won't pursue that any further. All the guys that I know from NCI are perfectly peaceful men, unless behind closed doors they become different individuals.
Yeah. Well,
which is possible.
Many of the things that we're talking about, we're all human, and sometimes things happen and we act in ways we wish we hadn't.
Oh, I see. It's you, David. You're the one.
No. No,
I'm kidding.
I promise. I have done my share of things, but not that. No roofs.
No, I think that's something we may envision, and maybe that's more healthy. Envision throwing somebody off a roof instead of yelling at them on the phone. Or I mean, how do you personally, because we're wrapping up here. I know we have to wrap up in the next few minutes.
Sure.
How do you personally deal with those situations where you may have lost your temper in the past? How did you correct that, or is there any explanation on how you surpassed succumbing to that?
The biggest thing is awareness. Awareness is one of the things that has given me the best perspective on how to handle this, is trying to be aware of what I've done, thinking before I respond. One of the things that we tend to do is we speak before our brain kicks into action. I know I've been guilty of this more times than I care to admit, but just pausing. And then the other thing is trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Most people don't mess up intentionally, and just trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that came from a lot of years of messing up and assuming the worst of people, and that, how could they do this? And you automatically assume people intend to screw up. Most people don't. Things just happen. Yeah. And trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. And what I found, Rob Falk taught me this a lot, in addition to my dad, that you expect the best out of people, and a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they'll meet your expectations. You expect the worst out of somebody, and you think that they're gonna, you're distrustworthy, and they'll also do that.
Yeah, like your goal setting, you will reach the point at which you envision you're going to go to. You'll see the thing that you envision is happening. I found that's true in most cases. I mean, just looking at, growing up a little bit, becoming more mature, and looking at the same issue and seeing it a totally different way. And a way that you could handle it without losing your temper, or not just being eat up by it. I mean, losing your temper is not exactly right, because it wouldn't happen, but, you would dwell on something, or it would eat at you and cause your performance to go down. You got to move on.
Yep.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Overthinking is one of the worst things that we can do.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't think you overthink, think back to the last time you did some windshield troubleshooting. You were overthinking.
No, that's every time. You kidding me?
Yeah. You wait until, because what we do is we once again start to set up expectations that may not happen, and they'll completely mess up our perception. So making sure that we get the facts. But I think the biggest thing, Zach, was awareness. It was me just being aware of not only how I sounded, because sometimes I come off as a little gruff, and it's how I am. I don't mean to be that way. But I can't remember who it was. We were at a trade show, and this one guy came up and he said, "Mr. Richardson is intimidating as ever." And I was like, really?
I would have never thought that.
I never saw myself that way, but I guess I did. So I tried to be conscious of that ever since, because that's not who I am. But every one of us that are listening to this, people take us and perceive us a certain way. So make sure it's the truth, because I try not to be that way. I hope I'm not that way, but that's how that guy saw me. I won't mention his name because he might be listening. So you know who you are. Thank you. But that was his perception. And that perception, that's his reality. So I didn't want that to be mine. So, always trying to put the best foot forward. So
that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. If you start to think from behind someone else's eyes, you may get a real look at something in yourself that you weren't willing to see. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I found that's true in myself. And it's always negative things. Fancy that.
It is. And that's where you got to be careful with the overthinking part of it, because you tend to amplify things that really aren't that big of a deal, and you may underestimate things that aren't. So, kind of, I guess, like you're wanting to wrap up our topic here with these incredible traits. They're not just for installers. Everybody's got them, and you probably know a lot of people that have them. I'm sure a lot of you listening to this have got those traits. Keep working on them. Keep doing them. I know it's a constant battle. Anybody that puts off a show like they're perfect and they don't make any mistakes, they need you to show them these 4 traits more than anybody else. So it's usually somebody covering up for something. We're all wearing masks, and we're all like bad and poorly installed HVAC equipment. We're all broken at some point in time. You just never know when. Yeah.
It would be great if we could all be completely unguarded in this area, maximize learning, but good luck with that. I'm saying we instinctively defend ourselves.
Post photos of your installation on the internet and just watch what happens. The
Watch your
cackling
soul die.
hyenas will come out of the woods.
What you think is great, think again.
That's that
yeah.
perception thing.
If that wouldn't pass code,
So,
you'd be fired at my
happy with
company.
Well, and keep in mind what code stands for too. That they never said well. And let's go back to the measurement thing, and then I'll shut up. The measurement thing, because every single system is custom, and you guys you've listened to me on the show before. You know that the equipment's not the system; it's a component in the system that you build. The system is everything; it's all encompassing. Measurements, these aspects of incredible installers, allow you to test that system and prove what it's doing. You guys create the system. Don't ever forget that. That's something you need to remember. You're responsible.
It's a source of pride. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The good pride.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing. I think I feel better about installers already. Heck, I might even go back to installing. No. Let's stop there. That's okay.
That's where we go back on and we just focus on those good memories.
Yeah, I got enough awareness to know I'm aware I'm not going back to doing that, for sure.
I don't know if I physically can. My knees will start swelling up.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just going to go with that too. I mean, that's probably true as well. I'm just going to say I can't physically do it. David, your contact
rafter knee
info.
is a real thing. So.
No, okay.
Dave,
before you give it, rafter knee, and you were talking about, not to be crude, but butt cracks earlier. We used to call it joist crack from sitting in the rafters. It was called joist crack. Just so people know, that could be your hashtag for today.
Okay, hey, what a great one.
Yeah,
contact the info. If you guys want to write it down, easiest way to get in touch with me is my email address. Do not call the office because it probably won't ever make it to me. So email me. It's davidr@ncihvac.com. That is davidr@ncihvac.com.
And I'll try to put that in the description after the show.
Cool.
For you guys.
Cool.
And then I'll give David's home number, his mailing address, so you can send your fan mail directly to him. Or you can send an electronic letter. Yeah, or hate mail. If you're like, man, I don't like the way you sounded there. I like to smoke 3 times an hour.
You talk funny.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe anybody with a drawl. Yeah, that's okay. But, David, I really appreciate you coming on again. I know it's been a 500 show, and I'd like to have you back a little bit sooner than this previous gap that we just had in between shows. So maybe in the next month or so, if you have time, you can come back and visit with us again.
Always making time for you, brother. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you, David. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was our buddy David Richardson right there, guys. Always a pleasure to have on the show. David's just the best. Good conversation. And I'm looking here, and I think we talked about pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. And I just want to just take a moment and just revel in that fact for just a moment. That I do believe that's like the best. Just not just David and I, but just me as a human, the best I've ever done in this area. And I'm just so happy about that. And guys, I appreciate you watching the show. I'll try to put David's email in the description once the show is officially processed. I know it takes a minute after we're done here. And let's see, you can contact me at hvacshoptalk@gmail.com. I'm on social media. If you are on social media and you want to follow Shop Talk, here's what we do. I put up clips that focus on certain subjects. So you might see shows come out in the next few days about just the work ethic portion of this. Or maybe David and I have a specific topic for about 3 or 4 minutes I want to isolate. So you'll see videos like that come out over the next few days. If you are on social media like Instagram, you'll see shorter bits just like that. Or you might see part of the fake news, because I put a lot of the fake news in those shorts because it really fits in like a 1 minute segment. And I get a real kick out of making that. You guys seem to like it too, so I'm going to keep on doing that. Try to come up with good stuff. I don't think I mentioned Goodman this week, but I'll try to remember Goodman next week, or at least Nordine, and make fun of one of them, if not both. So thank you to our chatters, Jessica, Melvin, Air Systems, Craig. I see Susie. Hey, Susie, I'm glad you're here. Good to see Susie, John Harrell, Isaiah, Jorge Gonzalez. We have Ted was here. What's up, Ted? We'll have Ted back soon, too. I like this. I'm going to pick 5 guys and just interview them in rotation all the time. Zach and Cody. Hey, the Sweet Life. Hey, good to see you. Performance HVACR. Thank you for coming by. Thomas. Let's see if I don't miss anybody. Can't go back too far. Josh Hogan. What's up? Joe Shearer. Joe, what's up? A lot of good guys. We'll have Joe back on the show individually as well. Joe's a real smart guy. Real smart, real humble. He's a godly man. I like that. See? It's not much of a world without God. See? It's not. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's just dark water, if I'm perfectly honest. I think that's what the Bible says. There was a good part there. There's a whole Bible part I was going to remember during the show, but now I can't remember. Oh, yeah, it's no man is good, part where the guy asked Jesus, who is good? He says, no man is good except for God. And that's something that helps me, because if you say that to yourself, you don't put yourself on a pedestal, and you can communicate with other people and have an understanding and a patience with them, because you're not elevating yourself to the I'm obviously right, they're obviously wrong area. You share the fact that, hey, we can all be wrong, so let me hear you out and see what's going on here, because you know what, I might be wrong. I have been wrong many times. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, awesome. You can watch it live on YouTube. Subscribe to HVAC Shop Talk on YouTube. You can also, if this is a live or a video form, listen to the podcast in your van. Listen to it as only audio. That's fine too. Either way is good to go. Don't feel like you can't reach out to me. Man. Hey, Me Play Joke says, man does not live from spite alone. Hey, it's a driver, but it drive you straight down. Don't want that. Be good. Read your Bibles, guys. Go to church every Sunday. Oh, Zach, I'm not doing that. You better do it, brah. It'll get you where you need to go. And I hope you do. But we'll talk a little bit more about that real soon. Guys, I appreciate you watching. I'm going to get out of here. I got to get up about 5 a.m., so I'm a little, I'm about ready for bed. I'm going to go lay down and go to sleep. You guys have a good work week. I'll see you again next week. I think we're going to have Brent on the next show. I'm not positive because I'm waiting to hear from Billy. Billy, if you're out there, this is how I lean on people live. That's what I do. But we'll have a next show. And it might be Sunday or Saturday. I'm going to try to give people a little bit of leeway there so it works out better for them. Maybe help a few more guests get in there that couldn't normally come in. So I'll keep you guys posted. You'll see the event post. And I'm going to get out of here. Guys, thank you for watching. And I'll see you on the next one.